Hi. Are we ready?
We're live.
We're
Yep.
live. We're live. So I want to thank everybody that is actually watching live right now, and then also thanks to anybody that might watch the recording later. This is the 15th episode of Spiritual Shadowboxing, and it's been a labor of love for Fareshta and I. And we actually had another Kelly Campbell that was involved for the first year. So we give our honor and love to her, even though she's not here. And for us, why we did this and why we came together was Fresher is a shadow coach, and I met her through Kelly, and she is an amazing coach. She's able to use the idea of Carl Jung's shadow and shadow work to do some really deep healing. So, like we were talking about, an uncovering, peeling back the layers of that onion to get into the core of those roots, of those depths, of those shadows that might play havoc and create unconscious behavior. So to get off that hamster wheel, to really understand the depth of what might be happening inside. But with, she does it, which I'm not reading a bio, I'm just telling you how I feel from my heart right now. She does it with love, kindness, and she can just say a few things and it just goes so deep into your heart. And me working with her has allowed me to really reveal some very deep wounds that I was able to caress and hold and love and let go. So I thank her for that. And so she does shadow work. We're both boxes. We both know the importance of emotion to move the energy through our body. You know, when we first started, we thought maybe we'd throw in some boxing moves in, but no, it's just spiritual shadow boxing, because in shadow boxing, you are always the opponent. You are your best challenge. So we work with the energies of trying to heal our own beloved hearts, and that's how spiritual shadow boxing. So and that is my dear love Freshta, and that's how we started. And my name is Kelly Walsh from the Divine Hive. I'm a meditator, channeler, writer, photographer, seer. So there you go.
Wow. Thank you. Damn. I'm just like so touched over here. Just how you shared your experience. Thank you.
Well, thank
Yeah.
you.
And Kelly is quite cosmic. So she's intuitive. She's galactic. She's in the ethers constantly, and quite a sage. So
Thank you.
really sweet to have you. And I get to introduce two dear friends here. I have Leah. I'm going to read a little bit about your bio, but I also want to share that I know you from the context of coaching. Leah is a natural born change agent, expander, and problem solver. She's a relationship coach, student, and teacher, and also known as Mama to two wildly authentic teenagers. I love it. She lives a loud, colorful, and textured life on a dirt road in a funky old house in Vermont with her man, their kids, one chatty cat, and a sweet old dog. Most days you can find her on the mat on the mountain making waves in the family business, on Zoom, or dancing in the kitchen, practicing connection through learning and service. You can read more about her on her website, which we'll have posted, and connect with her on socials, Facebook and Instagram. I know Leah, yes, from my coaching school, the relationship school, and circled with you through the deeper psychology of intimate relationships, that certification, as well as relationship coaching, and now get to circle with you as we train other coaches.
Yeah, on the
Really
leadership path
sweet.
together. Yeah.
Yeah, and alongside other hats that we hold.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right.
And I experience you as this mama bear energy that also will not let me not deal with the shit. So it's
Right.
like really held and faced. I feel like I
Yeah.
get to face things with you, because you won't let me off the hook, and I
Yeah.
get to grow from that. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. It's an honor. Thanks for having me here.
Absolutely. And Gudni, sweet Gudni, we've been circling in a women's group for a few years. I will read your bio as well to honor you. Gudni Patursson is the mother of three children, ages 18 to 24. Since 2015, she has been working as a psychotherapist at a high school, supporting students. She counsels them when they are stressed, depressed, in lack of motivation, having problems in their families or other relationships. And she's also, she has a private clinic where she works with clients in biodynamic cranio-sacral therapy, which sounds very juicy
That's
to me.
awesome.
Yeah, and Gudni and I have just circled and done a lot of living together these last few years. And she is also a sage and a sister, I think a cosmic sibling, if anything. And welcome, Gudni. It's good to have you here.
Thank you, Fresta. Yeah, it's nice to be here. I'm so happy about that.
Yes. Yeah, so we just want to hold, for the East Coast, this is somewhat of an anniversary of the US lockdown as it began. No, it's different for you, Gudni, in Denmark. It was 4 days ago. And for the West Coast and other areas of the US and the world, the dates are different. Yeah, just wanting to dive into,
Right.
where you remember being.
Yeah.
Like,
And-
what was that memory?
And before we get started, I just want to read this quick poem that I received, because the podcast today is Life Interrupted: The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and how we can how the family unit has changed and transmuted, and how we all a lot of us are trying to rush to get to our old lives, but what does that really mean? Like, how do we define our old life, and how can we change the paradigm of how we were living into the new paradigm of how we want to create a new world? And today, quickly, I'll just read these words that came to me this morning. Teach me to whisper the soft words of my soul, to sink into the depths of my own beloved heart, to find the sacred place of my wholeness, untouched by my environment, untouched by my thoughts, to discover the union of my place in the world and my place in the heavens. For as above is below, within the whispers I uncover myself. Thank you for letting me share that.
Beautiful. Thanks, Kelly.
So as Faresha was saying, we would love to start off the conversation and the dialogue with asking the first question that you posed as, maybe where were you when you remembered the first like official anniversary of your lockdown, wherever you are, like when all of a sudden it just became very apparent in your life that life was going to change. So we can, Gudni, maybe if you could answer that question first.
I can. I had just been on a meeting with Fresta online, and I went out to the living room and went for the grocery store because we needed some bananas for a smoothie or something. And on my way, I saw there was a meeting with the politicians and in Denmark, and they was talking about closing Denmark down, and I was just like, what's happening? And I'll see that when I come home. And I went to the grocery store, and it's quiet in the evening. Usually it's quiet, but it was full of people who just put everything in their things, and it was just like, I was just like, okay, I'm just going to get some bananas and then I'll be out of here. And the shop, they just said that we won't close until people go home. So they stayed until 2 in the night, and it was really crazy. And I was just like, wow, this can't be. I mean, it's not real, kind of. It's really special. But my daughter was home. She's 24. She just came home from Bali and was on her way to travel again. But she would just wait and see this corona. What is that? So she stayed. And after a few months, my son, he was in Switzerland, and he came home as well with one of the last flights. So we gathered here and in a very small house, and had the joy and everything of being together for a long time. We had a lovely spring, so it was it was crazy and lovely and yeah, and not funny sometimes as well. But I was just, yeah, that's just when it closed down. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, and I'm also hearing like the shock, the surrealness, the like, okay, something's happening, we should gather. All of the shared humanity that was happening around the world, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, we didn't know. It was so weird, and we didn't know. And now he's in Switzerland again, and my daughter is out. But now I'm more calm because I know it might not be as as we thought it would be. But at that point, we didn't know. It sounded really bad. Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, Leah, how about you? What feels important to share about sort of this day a year ago?
Right. It is like one of those days I know exactly where I was and what was happening. I was picking my youngest up from school in the middle of the day because we were scheduled to be away for the weekend. And so she was having a half day. Needless to say, that got canceled, but it was this middle of the day pickup. She was freaking out. She couldn't sit in a classroom any longer. She was having, a bunch of stuff go down at school, which is interesting because it's been put on hold. Talk about life interrupted. We're now dealing with a year later what didn't get dealt with last year. Because we were been in survival mode in many ways. In any case, I picked her up and we went to the grocery store, and I was very focused on canceling these reservations because we were supposed to go away for the weekend, and all of a sudden we weren't going. We were taking all the children skiing. My son, his girlfriend, my daughter, we were all gathering for sort of a last ski, which is our family thing. Anyway, I picked her up from school. She was relieved, and we went to the grocery store. We stocked up on food we would never typically eat. So it was a bit of a, we're locked in, we're locked down, we're going comfort food. We're just going to Netflix and chill. And that was kind of the beginning. And it was what feels important is that felt really temporary. We share custody with my kid's dad and his wife. And it had been half and half for a few years. And at that point, we decided we'll just keep the children. We thought it would be 2 weeks. It's a year later. Yeah, so that we can talk about that maybe. But the piece that it felt like it was temporary.
Yeah.
This will be a couple weeks. Yeah.
What I'm actually feeling from both of you is your nervous system being kind of really in overdrive, and I think that, I think we all did think it was a temporary situation. I think here in New York City, I think I had a little party of photography, like open house on March 8th. And that was probably the last time that my tribe kind of gathered in my place. And I think there was a few of my guests that chose not to come because they felt the COVID was more serious than I was taking it at the time. And I think that, so many of us went into that kind of survival mode, that where the nervous system, the adrenal glands kind of were in overdrive. And like you just mentioned, Leah, I think there's a lot of emotional components and spiritual components that were just kind of pushed aside. And I think, maybe you can address a little bit more about what those are, especially for the youth. I mean, I think that, in some avenues being like, one last thing, what I really noticed, because my office overlooks the main street here in Nyack, and it's kind of like the windows of the world here in my small little community. And what I noticed in April and in May is I would see families getting ice cream, mother and father with the kids on the bike. And I never saw that before, So I was thinking that is one thing that can be a positive about, this kind of cocooning, right? This kind of, let's not use the word isolation, but like a cocooning. But so I think, I don't know, I would love to hear about your experience with your children and both of you, and for us, just about like how you kind of balance that nervous system with maybe a spiritual understanding that maybe when we come on the other side, it might be for the better. That was long-winded, but you get my point, right? Lee, do you want to address that? Because you did mention about your daughter feeling
Yeah.
like
I'm
she
sort of
wanted to talk.
feeling into that cocooning idea. And what came up for me when I heard you say that and talk about sort of the silver lining piece, is that we had more family dinners in 3 months with the children than we would have had over 2 years had things been as they were. So that just popped out for me, as you said, sort of these silver linings. And that's just one. I could name a handful. We kept a list, in fact, in the beginning called Benefits of COVID. And it was just this running list on the fridge. Yeah, so with my daughter, Maple, who is just on the cusp of being 15, she was struggling in school. And we started to see this ramp up 7th grade, 8th grade. And it was contained, right? She's smart enough, together enough, athletic enough. We were busy, distracted enough that she was maintaining this, I think, pretty high level of anxiety. And COVID just brought it. So, right that day that I picked her up on the shutdown, this kid was so relieved she didn't have to go back in that building. She was like, thank God.
Wow.
She was begging to be homeschooled. And I kept saying, are you kidding me? I'm on what planet am I going to homeschool you? None. This is no way. and it was like we were sort of joking, gosh, Maple, you're pretty powerful. You shut down the whole world so you didn't have to go back to 8th grade. And I'm being a little funny here, but now she's started high school, 9th grade, everything that comes with being an adolescent. And we didn't deal with it. I didn't deal with it. I didn't get her connected the resources she needed because she stopped having to be in school. So everything was different. Of course, she's difficult. She's a teenager. She's locked down. She can't do anything. I kept making these justifications for why she was behaving the way she was behaving. And the truth is the kid needs some support and she's finally getting it. And so I see that as a shadow, if you will, of what's been happening. Had this not happened, I can envision my child still making it, white knuckling it, potentially self-medicating, not being socially locked down, young teenager, just starting high school. I'm going to a party. Now I've discovered drugs. I've discovered alcohol. Oh, now I feel better. So this piece of her having her cocooned, having her primarily with me here, us hitting rock bottom relationally, getting the help we need. I mean, I feel like it's a lifesaver potentially. So yeah, that's a big one that's real right now for us.
Yeah, and Leah, I'm feeling such tenderness in my heart. I mean, this whole conversation and just feeling some of the energies of when this all started. And then breathing. I don't know if anyone else needs a breath, but
I know, I think we all do.
Yeah.
I was thinking
just
of it.
breathing, because it's like such big energy we're talking about. And like you said, survival mode is really left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot. And an anniversary can sometimes bring up like, whoa, I have some perspective and some need for integration, because it has been a year. And I love this sense of like, not only was there immediacy to those moments of like, we just got to get through the week, but that is what a level of trauma looks like. And for people to understand that if you're a refugee, if you're handling any kind of domestic violence, whatever's going on, it is really a let me get through
Mm.
what's right before me. I
Mm.
think we can hold some compassion for that
We have
as
to fight.
well, you
Mm.
know. And I'm hearing, and you're one parent of many, that it's like, wow, I really got eyes on my kid.
Mhm.
And that's a blessing. Like, had this not happened, she could have, like you said, functioned enough and then probably malfunctioned somewhere outside of your sight, right? And in this way,
Totally. And the piece there for me is like, I'm also not distracted. I'm distracted, but not in the same ways. I'm not blind to what's going on with her in the ways that I had been looking away. I'm forced. COVID has forced it.
ooh,
Yeah.
that
Mm.
feels big.
I know. It's so true. And thank you so much for sharing. And Gudni, we're going to ask you the same question in a second, but I just want to go to the point that if we think about the development of, the human species, the human race, and how, hundreds and hundreds of years ago, the family unit looked so much different back then, right? And we had support. You had support from maybe your parents or grandparents that allowed you to have the space to give the support to your children. And, with our busy industrial lives that we've created, we get ourselves into that. I don't have children, but I know for myself that I get myself into this kind of cycle of like wanting to achieve and wanting to create and wanting to do this instead of and that's such a masculine energy instead of the energy of just allowing and being and being present for who is important in our lives, our families, our husbands, our friends, our tribes, and I think, like you said, COVID really stripped away anything that was not necessary in your life. So that was thank you so much for sharing. That was so beautiful, beautiful and very authentic and really touched all of our hearts. So and now, Gudni, what about your turn? And
Yeah, I mean, I had only for me it's been a kind of a roller coaster because all my economical situation was just taken away because I couldn't earn any money. So I was a bit stressed about that, of course, and I had to figure out how to do that. And my children came home from around the world, and we were here, and it was in some ways it's funny because I live next to a small road, and the people are passing by. There's been so much traffic here with the families walking around, and the forest where I usually go alone and have my time. There's been so much traffic there. People have been to the forest, and the good thing has been that the school have used it, and the families have been there and educating their children, and I love that. And my children are really close and really like to be together. But at the same time, two of them were starting to travel around the world and wanted to get out, but had to stay home.
Mhm.
So that was frustrating in many ways, but it was also really blessed because they had each other and they really, really enjoyed it. And I mean, that's also a lot about what I talk about to the students. We have the situation, we have to be here. So what can we do with that? And we made the best of it and had a good time about that. But still some frustration around how about money? Can we get some work? What can we do? And can we travel again? And so there was a lot of different feelings, I think. And we, as I said, it's a small house and 4 almost grown-up people together here. It was really interesting sometimes. And the young people had some different schedules, and they were up some of the night and having fun, and I was trying to sleep. So we had a lot of different things going on in that way. So for me, it's been I've seen it in as a good thing in many ways. I really loved that the world slowed down, and I love to get my children home. um, and but it's also been difficult because there's uncertainty and what will happen. And as you said, Leah, we thought it was temporary. No, it's just for a few weeks. So what is this? And the insecurity and the not knowing, I recognize that a lot with the students I talk to. They are tired now. We have had 3 months now of lockdown again now, and they can't go to school. I have a 18-year-old home with me, and he is frustrated. He needs his friends. He really needs to get out. It's so crazy. It's so crazy. And the students I talk to, they have been on a roller coaster as well. Like sometimes some of them needed this slowing down and have enjoyed it. The students that have been really stressed and had too much, they have enjoyed this. But some of them are really restless now and are really frustrated and kind of this hopeless. When can we get back? And the government starts to, yeah, maybe there might be a new wave, maybe some more. And it's like that's they can't find their way in that.
Yeah.
So I really talk a lot to them about, again, this, we have this here, we don't know what will happen. So what can you do that supports you? What can you have to go out, move, you have to do things, you have to go some places and meet with a friend and do things that so to break up your everyday life because it's on the screen all the time. So
Yeah,
yeah.
it's almost, I'm hearing that it's almost, in both your practices, and I love to touch upon, like, if you're seeing people and children and all that, I guess giving them tools, A, to deal with uncertainty, right? And B, fear. Like, how is fear manifesting in maybe your children that you see and you work with in both of your practices and with yourself and your families? I mean, does the element of fear and come into it, into the play as well, with the COVID?
So in my family, it's mostly fear of what the government are doing to us. It's not so much COVID. I mean, it's but it's what they, I almost say what they use it to. But what's happening with it, and how the way they deal with it, the tests, vaccines, everything. That's not.
That's a
Yeah.
big conversation.
Yeah, it's a bit scary because what are they doing with this world now? We need tests for everything. We need a lot of. They're changing and they're doing a lot of. They try to make everything forced now. In Denmark, if I don't get tested, I can't keep my job. If I don't have to get vaccinated though. So, but it's still they're really trying to push it. I see that, and a lot of the young people just follow. Okay, we do this, and okay, if you want to come to school, you have to do this and this. Okay, we do that because we want to go to school. We want to see our friends. So, in that way, I think it's, yeah, I don't like that.
Yeah,
Leah? Okay, oh, sorry.
I just want to own there's leaf blowers outside, so let me know if there's a lot coming through because I've been quiet for that reason. And I just want to hold too for both of you, like, at least with the adolescents, my sense is like the untethering is supposed to happen. There's like the biological imperative of like get away from parents, individualize, become who you are. And so that tug of war, does that feel evident in your world, Leah? Leah's nodding.
Yes. I'm like, yes. I mean, 14-year-old girl on the cusp of being 15. I'm perimenopausal. I mean, could we get more affronting here? She developmentally, I mean, you nailed it. Developmentally, these kids, their peers take precedence, especially with the young teens. We start to see that more. And it's just been stunted. and transferred over to the screens, which all the research is evident. The increased screen use, increased social media, increases anxiety, depression in teens. And yet, in the state that I live in Vermont, we're not supposed to be socializing with anyone outside of our household. So the children are, this is the part Maple wanted me to give voice to. One of the parts is like, okay, I can't see people outside of my household except at school every other day, hybrid model. And I come home, I can't see friends, but if I go on my phone, I'm increasing my anxiety. So it's just like we like to say in coaching, it's two shitty choices. It's just, what do I do? And the exhaustion piece, Gudni, you spoke to, is like, yeah, they're tired. My kids, my daughter, I'll say, is tired of sort of this trying to feel better. She's, I swear, if I say to her one more time, get up, fresh air, exercise, she's like, Mom, give me a break. And I get it. And I have another child who's 18, and he actually is on that side of thriving, where he developed a running program, and he's learned, self-organizational skills, and he's a musician. So he's really happy in his studio and kind of an introvert gamer. He's like, this is freaking great. I love it. And
It's interesting.
yeah, but they both are being treated for anxiety. Finn, a little more skills based. He has more of a capacity for that, but Maple's on meds. We're experimenting now, and that's a really vulnerable thing to say here and talk about. But yeah, we're at that point of trying to get her all the resources to support her. And fear, I think, was, Kelly, kind of what you were weaving in there. That's more for me. My children are not afraid of COVID. They're totally, they're just not afraid of it. They want to be respectful of people who are, but they're not afraid. What they're afraid of is being limited. And I've got one going off to university in the fall. I've got another one who hasn't even really gotten her feet going in terms of high school. And I think the biggest fear for me, we made it through the spring, and then summer kind of opened up here a little bit. That felt a little more normal. Fall came, and then in November, another mandatory lockdown came right around the holidays. And I went into that with tremendous fear that we were going to see a plummet in the household again. Depression, anxiety, intense conflict. Like I went into the fall just like really, really scared that this was going to be months and months again of what it has been. So we in our household have chosen to take some calculated risks in favor of mental health.
There you go. Well, and I think, there's a question from Maria, who is one of guests watching, and, talking, about how I think the governments have been using, maybe not so much for the younger generation, but for, older generations, that fear factor about like, submitting to whatever they feel is the right protocol at the time. And that goes back and forth and changes. And Maria says, if we follow the idea that things just don't happen to us, can we speak now about what these changes, the physical, emotional, and spiritual changes, where they may be taking us? So that was like one of her questions. If you feel like, like in a spiritual sense that, that we're co-creating and things just don't happen to us, how do we, as co-creators, kind of navigate through these changes, and where is it taking to us? How are we changing emotionally? How are we changing physically? And how are we changing spiritually? I think that's kind of the gist of the question, Maria. You can chat me up and if you have anything else to say, but yeah, so I think, if you want to look at that, there's the anxiety, there's the fear, anxiety, which is the mental aspect, fear, the emotional aspect, spiritually, what's happening to us, how can those be weaved together to create tools to kind of co-create and move the direction we want to go. We're all afraid of government control in some ways with this COVID. It's been a year and, we're all afraid of a mandated vaccine. So how do we kind of take charge? And I think it really is, because you guys both, all of you coach and you work with children, I think it's an education of ourselves and our children. And maybe we can address this a little bit in some of the discussions.
Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think so. And that's one of the things I really try to, in quiet way, address to my students. This about taking your own choices. Hey, what can you, this again, what can you do in this? And then also take a step back sometimes. Hey, what do I want from my life? What can this change? What can we maybe get this into? So it's not only a lockdown, which is terrible, but also it makes some new possibilities to see the world in a different view and to see yourself in a different view. And
Exactly.
yeah, to keep an eye on what is happening, and have some different views sometimes around what is happening. And so I hope something good will come out of that. And also, I lean very much into this. I think there's a reason for this happening, and I think we can make the best of it. But it's a hard way to do it. It's really tough for a lot of them. But there is a chance to step back and look into your own life and to find your own power in some way. Here you can do some things around something.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope that will prepare the students, all of us, to change things. I hope.
If we're able to have that clear sight is what I'm holding, right? If we're really able to have sober eyes on things right now, that is a gift. From what I heard you say, Leah, like the sort of forced things in your family and like the sober eyes are actually better, right? The growing pains versus the stuck pain is probably
choose your pain.
Choose your pain. Yeah, choose the suck, right, of life sometimes. And I also want to hold, from what you shared, particularly with the kids, like I felt my heart ache of like, we've kind of failed them if we're giving them either no interaction and screen time or interaction that can feel jarring in its own way. Like they've fallen. I just saw like teenagers, young people like falling into this big chasm, this gap where we in our survival mode have not been paying attention to like, oh shit, of course at 14 the last thing I wanted to do was hang with my parents, right? And it was all about how many hours I could talk to my friends. And like, what if they have to sit outside, in a blizzard and chat with each other from 10 feet apart? Like maybe that actually is better for their mental health than the fear of like, stay home, don't see them, see them on the screen.
I think it's healthier to,
Yeah,
to have that, that kind of physical, even if it's only 6 feet away. I mean, if we talk about non-locality in quantum physics, I'll throw out some fancy words, but you don't need like energetically, the physical distance is really never there. We in our three-dimensional forms create that kind of separation of, but the energy is always sharing. So if you're in a place and you're 10 feet apart or 6 feet, there's still that energy exchange that is so, I feel, nurturing and healthy for the children, for all of us. And it's like Rumi says, the beloved gazing. One thing that I really noticed during COVID, even at the height of it, when people really didn't know what was going, like people would be wearing masks and they would be walking on the street and everybody was looking down. Nobody was looking into each other's in the eyes. And we should not lose the ability to look into each other's eyes. because that is where we'll always have that energy, that exchange of energy, no matter what the restrictions are. One of the questions is, that Taya said is how the abnormal has quickly become the normal, through these restrictions that are before we would think was so strange are now so part of our private lives. And, I think that, letting the children gather, having them be responsible and understanding that, they need to have some kind of boundaries, but they have to have that exchange and that gazing, that looking upon each other. So I hope moving forward, depending on what's going on with the restrictions and the vaccines, that, the children ourselves are allowed to have that healing space.
Yeah, and getting choice there. I think that's one piece where I get anxiety. It's like, coming from where I've come from in terms of homeland, like being like, okay, the government doesn't always know what's best, and may we have our own common sense and our choice.
Mm-hmm.
And doing art therapy with kids, at the School of Rock, like the introverts, Leah, to your point, like have been thriving. The kids who were on meds for anxiety and ADHD because they were being bullied at school, and so they could not learn anything with that fear kind of hovering on the daily, they're doing well at home, right? I mean, they might still not dig hanging out with grandma and the parents, but they're doing better, they're happier. And the extroverts are, sort of wilting. And I'm seeing this place where I have to say education reform is where my eyes are, of like school really works mostly for the celebrated extrovert.
Mm.
And if a lot of the introverts are doing better at home, and I'm not saying that's all of them, then like what's their learning path that might look different without them having to step up to a metrics that isn't like
Right.
they're never gonna achieve, and that's a shame spiral
Right.
for them.
And it's a big reflection on the paradigm of our school systems that does not work. It's that, the one shoe fits all, and that like you said, eyes should be upon how to create something that both introverts and extroverts can thrive in, because obviously COVID has really, really highlighted that, so.
And we've all had on some level some trauma, right? And I know there's different ranges of that, and that's a big word to use, but I think we're still in it enough that we might not be able to see all the support we may need, right? All the resources we may need to gather at some point for ourselves. Can you two speak to that? Sort of when you're in something, you might not have clear eyes on yourself.
Oh no. No.
Yeah, when I was listening to you, Kelly, speak about the kids being outside and they should be able, be together, I was thinking, yes, hell yes. And the energy that it can take to sort of drag a reluctant child, a reluctant anyone, to live in my values of like, you should be outside in nature and it's healthy for you. My capacity to do that dragging is greatly diminished over this last year, right? So that's what comes up for me, Fereshta, when you say like, can I really have clear eyes on my daughter when I'm surviving over here too. I definitely have had to reach out, and am privileged enough to be able to, for much more support than I was getting before the pandemic, dealing with trauma, which has all been reactivated by this uncertainty. And Maria, to your question, I've been thinking about it around the spiritual component. I feel like the biggest thing for me has been, like, if I think about Pema Chodron, that's what comes to mind. Life is uncertain. We have to embrace that there's no certainty. That all felt really theoretical to me until this last year. It's like, yeah, change is inherent, la, 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 la. But now I have a really felt sense that there's no fucking ground beneath me. Like there is no ground. And that feels like a spiritual awakening. That feels true. it's tangible. Physically, I'm a mess. The stress is taking its toll. And so it's pointing to that. Like, what are my coping strategies when I'm under stress? So I'm having to wake up there. It's just like, Kelly, you spoke about before, like we keep alluding to this unveiling, peeling back the layers. How have I been distracting myself, band-aiding things, white knuckling it? That's what feels like the biggest awakening over here. And in terms of stepping into my responsibility, it's been great to be divorced and share my kids half the time and have half the time off, and they're over at dad's. It's wonderful. And we're like the happiest divorced family there ever was. We're thriving. And I've had to step into full responsibility, mostly for our children, and taking that on and everything that means for my health and my relationship. And so that's kind of how I'm stepping into my strength right now, and taking responsibility for my children, and also putting my foot down and creating some boundaries in the households around how we're coveting differently, and that there do have to be some risks, that the risks of my daughter seeing a friend, safely are safer than the risky behavior that's on the table if her mental health were to continue to plummet.
Yeah.
So choose the suck.
So well said. Yeah, it's the choices right now. There's some clear sight on, okay, here's the consequences, and they're real, right?
Okay.
Safe socialization, and or the other side of that. Yeah.
We need so much to take care of our health, to take care of ourselves, and to, as you said, we need support. And for me, it's been so great to talk to the students, because I had to hold them. I had to help them to find ways how to help themselves and how to take care of themselves, how to do good things for themselves, and what they could do if they were really tired, really sad, really frustrated and hopeless. And I had to give them tools and talk to them and everything. And every time I thought, okay, well, listen to what you're saying, because I need that as well to take care of me. So I think that's a good thing about this, that we can really need to hold ourselves and learn to do that, and learn to lean in, and learn to, what can I do to take care of myself, and what is more important, COVID or, of course we should act respectfully, but we need to take care of our mental health and everything, really.
We need to be able to feel the day and live our lives still, right? And I've used the term like threadbare and hopeful for the last, probably since Thanksgiving. Like, I feel threadbare on a certain level, just physically, mentally. And I'm still an optimist about the positives that can come out of this. And I know for me, when we came into sort of the Thanksgiving time, I said to my partner, like, I know what I normally need to get through the winter. Like, I know my resources. I don't know on what level of steroids they're going to need to be now. Right. Because that's the uncertainty, like the dancing with the uncertainty of, I have data for what I need most winters, like hard hikes, getting out in the snow, sauna, and I don't know if this is going to be like a times 10 thing, a times 100 thing, or if there's going to need to be more resources that I can't even think of, because this is not data I have this year. And that, Leah, is what I love about, when you're saying like befriending uncertainty, not just hypothetically in yoga, right, which I've done, but befriending it as like a living meditation every day, grounded in practice. Like, I don't know about you ladies, but like, I know now after this year what I'm made of.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that a year ago. If someone told me like, we're going to do this for a year, I think I would have lost my shit. like there would have been no part of me that thought I was capable of this level of resilience. So can you speak to that maybe? Like just even getting about yourselves despite the difficulties, the frustration thresholds everyone's hitting, right? Like getting what you're made of in these times.
I definitely like to just say a quickly thing about that is I think, you know, like kind of the practical aspect of our bringing our spirituality practice into a practice of living in a three-dimensional world. It's like, I think, you know, for me, it's day by day how I feel. You know, some days I'm like, I got this, I'm good, I'm happy, I can deal. And other days I'm like, I feel so heavy and I feel my own emotions on my shoulders, maybe emotions of others around me, maybe emotions of the collective itself, because I'm trying to find discernment about what are my own feelings. And it's an everyday practice to bring that idea of being in the moment. It's so important now because, you know, if we start thinking about the past and having the regrets, or thinking about the future and having the fear, if we divide our energy into those two polar opposites, it so much pulls us out of that now moment that we all talk about so much. You know, it's another concept that's just thrown around all the time. Be in the now, be in the now. But how do we, like, and maybe you guys can address, how do we stay in the now? Like, you know, like you said, like you have what you need, maybe on steroids, to get you through the winter, right? So what do we need to, you know, for me, to getting through the winter, I keep thinking of the Game of Thrones. Winter's coming. I don't know if you guys watch Game of Thrones, but how do we get through this winter of our lives right now? Metaphorically, you know, it doesn't matter the season, but this has been the winter of our souls coming together. So how do we stay in the now? So I love to throw that out. You know, what's working for you, Leah, and your children? What's working for you? Gudni, for us, you just told us beautiful of what you need. You know, I like that idea of saunas. And yeah, so whoever wants to address that.
Yeah, and also what you're made of, like just getting like, man,
Yeah.
I've got more in my veins than I thought, you know.
P and V, as these old ladies used to tell me. I got a P and V in my veins.
I'm really made of good stuff, totally. But oh man, it's been hard. As I said, it's been a roller coaster. And for me, one of the things is to stay in the now, is to feel the feelings, to be able to be with it, which is very difficult sometimes. But the more I get to take, that's also what I'm talking to the students about, but I'm doing it myself a lot. Reach out to people. I'm in nature all the time. That's my friends. The trees are my friends. Being outside, and I reach out to friends as well to keep me sane. And I go for walks with my neighbors and good friends. And yeah, some kind of acceptance of, yeah, every day is different, and some days are really not the most fun, but that's part of it. And for me, it's a lot of looking into what can I do, and sometimes it's lying on the couch looking at Grey's Anatomy or something else, just watching whatever series, and that's fine, and accepting that, and leaning into something around it. It might be a good thing what's happening in a really hard way. Yeah. Leah?
Yeah, so for me, meditation practice daily is become medicine, just necessary medicine. Again, theoretically, getting to put it into practice. I always knew it, and now it's essential. We are privileged enough to buy ski passes. So we actually take our daughter, my partner and I take our daughter skiing, downhill skiing, 2 to 3 times a week when she's not in school. Phones out of the hands, ski poles are in the hands. And so we're getting outside together, taking risks that way. So finding ways. So being physically active, my spiritual practice, and besides the other scaffolding I mentioned, getting support, coaching, therapy, Service. I notice when things are incredibly intense in the family and the household, if I have to compartmentalize that for an hour to have a session to support a couple who's in a conflict or an individual, yeah, it shifts the energy for me because I'm being of service. I'm doing something. So I think service is a huge one. How can we be of service in the world? And then resilient, like, what are you made of? That question, Fereshta. For me, I think it's helped me because I tend toward masculine energy and challenge, as you know. It's actually helped me see where I'm soft and allowing. It's invited me more into that part of my strength. So what I'm made of is a lot more than this kind of image that I put out there. And I've seen the strength in my relationships. So when you asked what your own strength, I'm like, yeah, and I'm seeing my primary relationship has been through a massive challenge in the last year, and we are strong, and that feels like a really cool blessing. It's helped me get more divorced, right? And that's a strength. For better, for worse, I love my children's father, and this is kind of forced our hand here. My family, I'm seeing the strength in those relationships, and so that's where I think of around strength. And then just my capacity to be a mama.
And to know how much you are that, right? Because I see that, like, when you have to go to such a deeper place like this, like, oh yeah, I am a mama. Like, I am that completely, fully. Yeah. Thank you, ladies. I'm so resonating with your shares there. Leah, did you have something?
Yeah, I was thinking of this moment I had with my mom, and we were talking about my daughter, and my mom was getting emotional. I think you get all this sort of intergenerational trauma, and so it's kind of like she was projecting my adolescence, which was difficult. And so there was this weird swirl happening on FaceTime, and my mom was getting teared up, and she said, "There's nothing more important than Maple. We have to circle her arms around her now. We have to just make sure she knows." And I had been a little collapsed. And when my mom said that, I felt this like, coming. I was like, Mom, I've got her. I've got her. And I felt it so solidly in myself. It was really like this energy manifest where I was reassuring my mother as I was seeing her fear reflected. I was like, Mom, I have this.
That's great.
Wow.
It was beautiful. Yeah, it was a cool moment.
That's so touching, Leah. Yeah, and I'm just wondering how much that's happening around the world. All these things we are sharing, right? The shared humanity of the fears, the stuff we kind of came in with, to like the learnings, to the growing pains, to even the like, hey, we're all threadbare together. So maybe we lead with empathy with each other in the coming days, coming months, whatever need be, because we're all going through this in some way. Obviously, some people, I notice my own privilege. I know not everyone's had the same blessings and have had difficult hardships. So just wanting to name that too, that some people have been in like double survival in certain areas. And I really resonate with the service piece. I don't know that my clients and students know that they've kept me afloat this last year. Because if I did not have that alchemy of contribution moving through me every day, I would be a wreck. I would really be a wreck if I did not get to give. And I feel like that's almost counterintuitive to like, oh, I'm threadbare, but I'm replenished in that. So just also holding that as a real alchemy that is available. If we're empty, yes, there's replenish your cup, fill your cup. And there's like, oh, fill your cup by serving.
my
So,
God,
yeah.
again, alchemy of contribution. That's what I'm talking about, you girl. Man, that was good.
Thank you all so much for the generosity of your time, your wisdom, your just heartfelt, touching experiences and vulnerability to share what it's like to be a human in this, a parent in this, daughter in this, um, and someone who's serving in all of this. Really incredible. Really
And thank
touched.
Yeah, thank you. And we do have one guest. I don't know if she does have a quick question. Just we want to honor Taya for being with us. And if not, you can put something in the chat and we can get back to you. But thank you for being with us on hi there. Thank you so much. Yeah. So I think that's our time.
Big
And
breath
Can
out.
actually, can I say one thing? That
Yeah.
since my daughter she was going to make it and then decided she wasn't up for it, but I said, if there's anything you want sort of put out there, what would it be? And so she said she would ask that the adults remember that the kids are trying. So teachers, coaches, parents, she said, you say, your homework, clean your room, eat your dinner, this, that. She said, we are trying. That's what I want you to know. We're trying. And so I promised I would pass that on.
Yeah, that's huge.
I love that. Yeah.
That's huge for all of us to just with grace and patience and compassion see that, what we're receiving from the youth is them really trying. Yeah. Oh, that really softens me just to remember that. When they're late to class or when they're not prepared and it's like, what's happening? To be like, oh yeah, they're trying. Yeah.
Thank you. Great way to end the show. Great way. Great message. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Leah.